They say 10 tigers can't defeat 1 lion. But there's an old folk saying, tigers sit in the center hall, and lions guard the main gate. Tigers are seen as incarnations of malevolence, while lions are the symbol of justice. To prove that tigers are the true kings of all beasts, I was reborn as a fat tiger in the Panzhihua Zoo. Even though the keepers feed me carefully every day, I don't touch a single bite, losing weight frantically, all because a solar flare will erupt in 6 months, and all creatures will mutate into terrifying beasts. In my previous life, 2 king-level mutated beasts appeared in the zoo. A crocodile mutated into a Styx Dragon-Crocodile, and a chimpanzee mutated into a Loathing Mandrill. Before other animals could even finish mutating, they became their prey. To escape this zoo alive, I must strike first, so before they mutate, I must take them out in advance. You should know that I am the king of all beasts. This crocodile and chimp are nothing before they mutate. Currently, there is a big problem before me. The zoo's food is simply too sumptuous. Looking at myself, a greasy, fat version of the king of beasts, I am undoubtedly the fattest tiger in the tiger area. 120 days until the mutation. Starting today, I officially launch my weight loss plan.
11 Uhr morgens.
Keeper Old Zhang brings a large basin of chicken legs as usual, entering the Tiger Mountain. This was my favorite delicacy in my previous life. Plump and juicy. I used to eat it all clean every time, but not today. I turn my head away, without even a glance. Old Zhang is stunned. He tentatively pushes the meat basin forward. I simply turn around and walk away. Hey, that's weird. This fat tiger is acting strange today. Old Zhang mutters as he leaves. Holding back my drool, I begin to act. Although the enclosure isn't large, it's enough for me to do shuttle runs. I dash from one end to the other, then suddenly turn and dash back. Over and over again, the fat jiggles on my body. Every step is incredibly heavy, but I grit my teeth and persevere. When tired of running, I climb that artificial tree, using my front claws to grip the trunk, forcing myself to drag my body up. For the current me, this is sheer torture. Oh my god. It can even climb trees. Is it trying to lose weight? So cute. Hurry up and record a video. More and more tourists gather to watch. I don't care what these humans think. During training breaks, my gaze looks over the fence, locking onto 2 targets. First, that saltwater crocodile in the reptile house. It is a full 5 meters long, lying on the fake rock all day soaking up the sun. Too lazy to move. In my previous life, it was this guy, who mutated into the Styx Dragon-Crocodile. Scales as hard as iron. Its jaws crushed 3 mutated wolves. It is the number 1 threat I must eliminate. Second, the chimpanzee in the primate area. Don't be fooled by it only asking tourists for bananas now. After mutating, it will become a Loathing Mandrill, with immense strength and high intelligence. In my previous life, it slaughtered the entire bird area. These 2 scumbags must be taken out before they mutate. I silently count down in my heart. 99 days until Doomsday. By evening, I am exhausted, lying on the ground panting, but I feel incredibly reassured. As long as I keep going, I will surely regain the nature of a fierce tiger. For the next 30 days, I push myself to the limit, training every day before dawn. Shuttle runs increased from 100 sets to 500. Climbing went from barely making it to doing pull-ups on the trunk. The food brought by the keeper, I only eat 1/3 of it, picking only lean meat and organs, ignoring all those plump chicken legs. Old Zhang is extremely worried, thinking I was sick. He even specially called a vet to check me. As it turned out, there was nothing wrong. The numbers on the scale are dropping rapidly, from 320 gene down to 300 gene, then to 280 gene. The excess fat on my belly disappeared. Muscle lines reappeared. Can feel it, that long-lost explosive power returning to my body. Early morning of the 21st day, I stand by the pool, looking at my reflection. The greasy fat tiger is gone, replaced by a lean and strong beast. I tried to pounce. The speed was more than twice as fast as before. Good, it's time to act. I began observing the patrol patterns. Guards patrol once at 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. every night. Surveillance cameras cover most of the area, but there is a blind spot, the old wire fence on the west side of Tiger Hill. Because it's been covered by branches for years, the camera can't capture it, and that wire fence had long been corroded. I've been secretly testing it with my claws these days. Can be torn open as long as I use force. The opportunity came on the night of the 25th day. The weather forecast was correct. The rainstorm arrived as expected. Thunder roared. Lightning turned the entire zoo a ghostly white. In this kind of weather, the surveillance system is most prone to failure. Guards won't patrol carefully in the rain.
2 Uhr nachts.
I made my move, using the thunder as cover. I threw my entire weight against that iron. The corroded wire snapped instantly. I squeezed through. Rain pelted my body, chilling to the bone, but my blood was boiling. Following the route I had observed beforehand, I avoided all the cameras, crossing the park like a dark shadow, heading straight for the reptile house. The saltwater crocodile's pool is in the outdoor area. At this moment, it should be resting underwater. I slid silently into the water. The icy pool water made me shiver. I adapted quickly. By the light of the lightning, I I saw that behemoth. It was sinking at the bottom, motionless. It must be a fatal blow in one strike. I took a deep breath and dove down. My limbs glided through the water, slowly approaching 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. Just as I was about to launch the attack, the crocodile suddenly opened its eyes. It had been awake all along. No time to think. I lunged forward violently, biting hard into its nape. The crocodile struggled frantically. Its tail whipped against me like a steel lash. The pain almost made me let go, tumbling underwater. My lungs were about to burst, but I knew I couldn't let go. This was the only chance. It tried to shake me off. I used my weight to pin it down. It tried to surface. I dragged it down with all my might. Memories from my past life told me, no matter how fierce a crocodile is, it needs to breathe. I can hold my breath longer than it can. This was my advantage. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, the crocodile's struggle grew weaker, until it stopped moving completely. Only then did I let go, dragging its carcass to the surface, gasping for air. The rain was still falling. The thunder was still roaring. No one noticed what happened here. I left a few claw marks on the crocodile's body, and smeared blood on the rocks by the pool, faking that while it was climbing ashore. It slipped and fell to its death. After doing all this, I left quickly, returning to Tiger Hill the same way I came, making the wire fence look as if it hadn't been touched. By the time I returned to the enclosure, it was almost dawn. I was soaked through, lying in the corner pretending to sleep. The next morning, a keeper's scream came from the reptile house. I looked through the bars. Several staff members were discussing around the crocodile pool. Maybe it was old age, slipped and drowned while climbing ashore at night. Or maybe it was frightened by the thunder. What a pity. I closed my eyes, thinking to myself, 75 days until the apocalypse. Next target, the chimpanzee. But what I didn't know was, in the primate area, that chimpanzee from far away was letting out an uneasy low growl toward me. The death of the saltwater crocodile triggered a chain reaction. The next day, the director personally led a team to inspect all pavilions, focusing on identifying safety hazards. I saw them repeatedly examining the area by the crocodile pool, and they even retrieved the surveillance footage. Fortunately, on the night of the rainstorm, the surveillance system indeed malfunctioned. Most of the footage was just static. In the end, they could only conclude it was an accident. But the zoo still tightened security. Patrols increased from 2 to 4 times. New cameras were installed in every pavilion. Even the blind spot on my side was covered. What's more troublesome is, the keepers began to pay extra attention to every animal's condition. Old Zhang observes outside my enclosure for half an hour every day. I must be more careful. What makes me most uneasy is that chimpanzee. His name is King Kong. He is the star of the zoo. He can communicate with the keepers using sign language. His intelligence is equivalent to a 5-year-old child. Since the crocodile died, he has become exceptionally irritable. Every time I pass the small path near the primate area, he rushes to the glass wall and pounds it frantically, letting out piercing screams. That gaze is full of vigilance and hostility. He felt it. A beast's instinct, telling him that I am dangerous. This is very dangerous. If he continues to act like this, it will eventually attract attention. I must make everyone believe that I am just an ordinary tiger, harmless to humans and animals, completely safe. So I began to act. I refused to eat, lying motionless in the corner all day. Old Zhang grew anxious and quickly called the veterinarian. The vet gave me a comprehensive checkup, taking my temperature, listening to my heartbeat, and drawing blood for tests. After tossing me around all morning, all the indicators were normal. It might be an emotional issue. Tigers can get depressed too. The weather has been bad lately, insufficient sunlight, affecting its activity time. I cooperated by appearing weak, wobbling even when trying to stand up. Old Zhang was heartbroken, specifically preparing the best beef for me, and putting new toys in the enclosure. I took a few symbolic bites, then continued to fake being sick. This trick worked very well. A week later, everyone believed I was just experiencing seasonal depression. Even the director stopped paying attention to me. The security guard in the monitor room, seeing me on screen, would only glance at me, then switch to another camera. But only I know what I do every midnight.
3 Uhr nachts.
The patrolling guard has just passed by, and I wake up from my slumber. I walk to the corner of the enclosure, where there is a rough concrete wall. I extend my right paw, scratching against the wall. Scrape, scrape. The sound of claws scraping against concrete is exceptionally piercing in the silence. I keep grinding until the tips of my claws become sharp as knives. Left paw, right paw, hind paws. Every single one must be sharpened to the max. After sharpening my claws, I begin practicing pouncing and biting, simulating attacks against the air over and over, calculating the optimal angle of force, searching for the most lethal biting position. A chimpanzee is not a crocodile. He is agile and powerful, and possesses intelligence. I must achieve a one-hit kill, leaving him no chance to counterattack. Faking illness by day, training by night, I pushed myself to the limit. 60 days until doomsday. This evening, I lay in the enclosure pretending to sleep as usual, when I suddenly heard a commotion from the primate area. King Kong was going wild. He smashed the decorations on the glass wall, tore the tire toys into shreds, and attacked the keeper trying to soothe him. He's been getting more and more irritable lately. Could he be sick too? Isolate him for observation first. Don't let the visitors get close. I looked through the bars, and my eyes met King Kong's. Across a distance of several hundred meters, he bared his fangs toward me, letting out a low growl. That was a declaration of war. I narrowed my eyes, and bared my sharp teeth in return. Come on. I'm waiting for you, but not now. Wait until the moment I am ready. Night fell, and I continued sharpening my claws. Deep scratch marks were already left on the concrete wall, and my claw tips glinted coldly under the moonlight. Just then, an emergency notice suddenly came over the loudspeaker. The Meteorological Bureau issued a warning. A peak in tourist flow for a major holiday will occur in 3 days, accompanied by severe convective weather. Please make safety preparations. I stopped my movement, my heart racing. The opportunity has come. The 3 days passed in a flash. I used this time to repeatedly observe the terrain. From Tiger Hill to the primate area. The shortest route is through the central plaza, but that's where the cameras are most dense. The alternative route is to bypass Monkey Hill, passing through the bird area, and finally entering through the side gate. This path has 2 surveillance blind spots. As long as I'm fast enough, I can arrive before being discovered. On the holiday, the zoo was packed with people.
10 Uhr morgens.
The number of tourists had already exceeded 5,000. The central plaza was crowded with parents and children. Screams and laughter were everywhere. Security guards were busy maintaining order. Completely ignoring the surveillance room, I saw the surveillance room window. There was only one staff member on duty, still looking down at their phone. The weather forecast was accurate. Clouds of birds began to gather. The air was thick with the humidity before a storm. This is the perfect timing. 12 p.m. The Tiger Hill viewing platform was packed. A group of elementary students were visiting, led by their teacher, pointing at me. Teacher, this tiger is so thin. Is it sick? It's just lying there without moving. How boring. I slowly stood up. Everyone excitedly held up their phones. I walked up to the glass wall. It was a piece of tempered glass 5 centimeters thick, claimed to withstand 1 ton of impact force. But I knew its weakness. When the apocalypse broke out in my previous life, this glass cracked from the bottom left corner. Because the fixing bolts there had long been loose, I just needed to find the right spot and hit it with enough force, and it would shatter. I took 10 steps back, lowered my body, getting into a pouncing position. The tourists thought I was performing. They began to cheer. Teacher, quickly tell the students to move back. But no one took it seriously. I took a deep breath. Every muscle in my body tensed. Then I charged. 300 G of weight plus the impact of a full sprint. I hit the glass wall like a cannonball. Target bottom left corner. The massive impact made the entire pavilion shake. Spiderweb cracks appeared on the glass, spreading outwards from the point of impact. I didn't stop, stepped back a few paces, and charged again. Oh my God! The glass is breaking. Run! Screams erupted one after another. The crowd began to panic. Parents grabbed their children and ran outside. Some were knocked to the ground. The scene spiraled out of control instantly. Security rushed over and shouted into the radio, "Quick! Something happened at Tiger Hill. Tranquilizer guns. Hurry!" The 4th impact. The glass finally gave way. The entire wall collapsed with a crash. I charged out. Screams filled the viewing platform. Everyone was running for their lives. I didn't attack anyone. I leaped directly over the crowd, charging toward the pre-planned route. Shouts from security and alarms echoed behind me, but I ignored them completely. Bypassing Monkey Hill, the monkeys were terrified by my presence and scattered. Passing through the bird area, birds flew up in terror, blocking out the sky. I was like a bolt of black lightning, weaving through the chaos. In 30 seconds, I covered 200 meters. Ahead was the side gate of the primate area. The door was slightly ajar. The keeper had forgotten to close it while evacuating tourists. I crashed through the door and burst into the interior of the area. Inside the primate area was a massive indoor pavilion, simulating a tropical rainforest environment. Tall artificial trees and vines, and ropes for the gorillas to climb. It was empty at this moment. All tourists had been evacuated. I stopped in my tracks, looking around vigilantly. Suddenly, a low growl came from above. I looked up sharply and saw King Kong crouching on a tree branch 5 meters high, staring down at me from above. He was larger than I had imagined. His muscles were knotted, arms as thick as tree trunks. He was holding an iron bar in his hand, a prop used by the keepers for training, now being used as a weapon. We stared at each other. The air seemed to freeze. King Kong suddenly opened his mouth, revealing sharp fangs, letting out a deafening roar. That was a provocative declaration of war, and also a final warning. I let out a tiger's roar in return. The sound echoed through the enclosed venue. Rapid footsteps sounded from a distance. Security personnel were arriving with tranquilizer guns. I didn't have much time left. I arched my back. My tail stiffened, ready for battle. King Kong leaped down from the tree, landing steadily in front of me. 10 meters away, he raised an iron bar, assuming an attacking posture. King of Beasts versus the Forest Overlord. A fight to the death. King Kong attacked first. He swung the iron bar, smashing toward my skull like a warrior swinging a battle axe. Amidst the whistling wind, I could feel that terrifying power. I didn't take it head on, but stepped aside to dodge. The iron bar smashed into the ground. The concrete floor shattered instantly, sending a cloud of dust flying. Such speed, such power. Truly worthy of being a future abomination mandrill. Even without mutation, this strength was enough to crush my skull. Couldn't let him hit me, not even once. King Kong didn't pause. He swept the iron bar across. I ducked low to avoid it, while lunging at his chin. My claws tore deep into his thigh, ripping open a blood vessel. King Kong felt the pain, letting out an angry roar. He swung the bar back toward my spine. I sensed the danger, rolling away at the critical moment. The iron bar grazed my fur and bone, taking a few tiger hairs with it. Close call, I was almost hit. This was a pure brawl. No room for tricks. King Kong threw away the iron bar. He realized that, in this kind of close-quarters combat, the weapon was actually a burden. He opened his arms, revealing the thick muscles of his chest. That was his strongest defense. He wanted to fight me to the death in the most primitive way. I circled around him, searching for a weakness. King Kong was turning too, always keeping his front facing me. A light of intelligence flickered in his eyes. This was no ordinary beast. He could think. He could judge and predict. We were in a stalemate for over 10 seconds. I suddenly accelerated, feigning an attack, toward his left side. King Kong immediately turned to defend, but that was exactly what I wanted. I stopped abruptly midway and changed direction, lunging from the right side. This time, I bit into his shoulder. King Kong howled in pain, grabbing my neck with both hands, trying to pry me off. His grip strength was terrifying. I felt it was hard to breathe, but I didn't let go. Instead, I bit down harder. My canines sank deep into his muscle. King Kong shook his body violently, trying to throw me off. My limbs clung tightly to his torso, clinging to him like a parasite. He grabbed my hind leg and slammed me hard onto the ground. After a few slams, my organs were nearly shattered, but I still didn't let go, because I knew letting go meant death. King Kong's strength began to wane. Blood loss slowed his movements. I seized this opportunity, released the shoulder, and instantly bit his throat. This was the King of Beasts' finishing move. Throat lock. My fangs pierced his trachea. King Kong's eyes widened in shock. His hands patted my body weakly. He wanted to breathe, but his throat had already been torn. Blood gushed from the wound, staining my face red. His struggles grew weaker and weaker, finally collapsing to the ground. I released my grip, panting heavily, covered in wounds. A few ribs were likely broken. My hind leg was also bleeding, but I won. The threats of the 2 king-level mutated beasts were all cleared. Just then, rapid footsteps came from the door. I turned my head and saw 3 security guards rushing in with tranquilizer guns. I wanted to escape, but my body had reached its limit. The first tranquilizer dart hit my hind leg. The second one pierced my shoulder. The medicine took effect quickly. My vision began to blur. My limbs became heavy. I staggered, trying to stand up, but in the end, I fell to the ground. My consciousness gradually faded. I used my last strength to lift my head, looking at the sky through the glass skylight. At that moment, I saw a sight that shouldn't have appeared. An eerie red light appeared on the horizon. Not the sunset glow, not burning clouds, but a blood-red color I had never seen before. That red light spread across the horizon, as if the sky were bleeding. No, this isn't right. There are still over 50 days until the apocalypse. The solar flare shouldn't erupt now. Could it be because I changed history, causing the timeline to change as well? The red light grew stronger and stronger. The entire sky was dyed blood red. I wanted to struggle, wanted to escape from here, but the anesthetic had completely taken control of my body. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier, finally closing completely. The last thought before passing out was that it's over. Everything was moved forward. Intense pain dragged me back from unconsciousness. I opened my eyes and found myself locked in a strange place. This isn't the Hushan enclosure, but a special cage made entirely of metal. The walls were thick. The top was equipped with electric sensors. This is the zoo's quarantine area, a place specifically used to hold dangerous animals. I tried to stand up, but the bones in my whole body were groaning. That battle with King Kong made me pay a heavy price. After 3 ribs broke, the wound on my leg was still oozing blood. My left eye was so swollen I could barely open it. But these weren't the worst part. The worst part was, the sky outside the window had completely turned blood red. That wasn't an ordinary red, but a sickening crimson that made the heart race, as if the entire sky were burning. The air was filled with a scorched smell. The temperature was rising sharply. I could hear the sounds of chaos coming from outside. Alarms, screams, and the panicked roars of animals. The solar flare really erupted, and it was over 50 days earlier than in my previous life. I struggled to crawl to the window, looking out through the iron bars. The zoo was in total chaos. Tourists were fleeing frantically, led by security guards, but many had already fallen to the ground. Their bodies began to undergo eerie changes. Some people's skin grew scales. Some people's fingers turned into claws. The mutation had already begun. Just then, my body also showed abnormalities. A surge of scorching energy rose from my stomach, flowing through my veins like lava. I looked down at my abdomen. Something had emerged there. It was wriggling incessantly under the skin. I suddenly remembered, when I bit through King Kong's throat, I swallowed a piece of its flesh. That piece of flesh was now burning inside me. The pain came without warning. My skeleton began to break and reorganize. Every bone was making a cracking sound. I rolled on the ground in pain. Claws scratched the metal floor, making a piercing sound. Fur began to falling off in large patches, revealing the new skin growing underneath. That new skin wasn't the ordinary orange-yellow, but a deep black, adorned with golden patterns, alternating black and gold, like wearing a layer of battle armor. My size was exploding. Muscles expanded at a visible speed. Bones continued to extend. My original weight of 300 was now growing wildly. 400, 500, 600 gene. The metal cage began to groan under the burden. My body was almost bursting it open. The most painful part was the change in my head. My skull was being reshaped. 2 bony protrusions grew on my forehead. Like a crown, canines became sharper, each one as long as a dagger. Large amounts of bloody tears welled up in my eyes. My vision went from blurred to clear, finally becoming 10 times sharper than before. I could see energy particles floating in the air, could see tiny prey on the walls, even able to see hundreds of meters away. The mutation process of other animals. This is awakening. I don't know how much time had passed. The pain finally subsided. I collapsed on the ground, panting heavily. My whole body was soaked in sweat, but I could feel. My body was filled with unprecedented power. I stood up. My head almost touched the 3-meter-high ceiling. I looked down at myself. My once lean body had become a muscle-bound giant beast, fur of black and gold, shimmering with a metallic luster in the dim light. I tried to swing my claw with a light swipe. 5 deep claw marks appeared on the metal wall. This power is far greater than in my previous life. This is far too strong. This power is far greater than in my previous life. I understand now, because I killed 2 king-level mutated beasts in advance, and devoured the flesh of King Kong. I became the first creature in this zoo to complete the awakening, while other animals are still in the painful process of mutation. This is my advantage. Suddenly, a shrill scream came from outside. I rushed to the window and saw a hair-raising scene. In the zebra area, those once gentle zebras were tearing each other apart. Their teeth had become serrated. Bloodthirsty red light flashed in their eyes. A zebra bit through its companion's neck, frantically devouring the flesh. In the peacock garden, the peacock's feathers became as strong as steel. They flapped their wings, slicing the fences into pieces. On Monkey Mountain, the monkeys' sizes grew wildly, turning into hideous monsters, attacking tourists trying to escape. The entire zoo had turned into hell. I took a deep breath and slammed hard against the metal cage door. Once, twice. On the 3rd time, the cage door was finally smashed open. I rushed out of the quarantine area, standing under a blood-red sky. More roars echoed from the distance. Those were the bellows of mutated beasts. But I am not afraid, because I am the strongest existence here. Just then, I heard a faint cry for help. It was old Zhang's voice. He was trapped in the office building. I hesitated for a second. Then I ran in that direction. Not out of kindness, but because in this apocalypse, I need a human who knows this place. I sprinted toward the office building. Each stride covered 7 or 8 meters. My awakened body was terrifyingly powerful. The ground trembled beneath my feet, leaving deep paw prints behind. The road was littered with corpses, tourists, security guards, and some half-mutated humans. Their bodies were twisted into grotesque shapes. Some had grown tentacles. Some had faces split open, revealing the fangs inside. These half-mutants suffer most, being neither human nor beast, only able to wail in pain on the ground. I ignored them and rushed straight for the office building. A mutated zebra blocked my path. Its size had doubled. The black and white stripes had turned blood red. Its mouth was full of serrated spikes. It was gnawing on a corpse. Hearing my footsteps, it raised its head, mad red light flashing in its eyes. It let out a neigh and charged at me. I didn't dodge. Instead, I pounced head-on, slapping its head with one claw. The immense force crushed its skull instantly. The mutated zebra didn't even have time to scream before collapsing to the ground. Just then, I noticed a strange phenomenon. The mutated zebra's forehead split open. A thumb-sized crystal rolled out. The crystal was dark red, emitting a faint glow. My body instinctively craved it, a hunger coming from the depths of my genes. I walked over and swallowed the crystal in one gulp. A surge of pure energy flooded my body. I could feel the injuries in my body healing rapidly. Broken ribs fused back together. Scabs on my hind leg wounds fell off. Not only that, my strength was also increasing, although the increase was small, but I was indeed getting stronger. stronger. This is a crystal core. In my previous life, I heard that mutated beasts form a crystal core in their brain after death. It is the crystallization of their evolutionary energy. Devouring crystal cores can accelerate evolution and stabilize the realm. I didn't expect to encounter one so soon. I picked up my pace. A dozen mutated monkeys gathered around the office building. They were originally only as big as cats. Now each was as tall as an adult. Their arms were as thick as tree trunks, frantically slamming against the door. Old Zhang's voice came from the second floor. "Help! Someone save me!" The mutant monkeys became even more excited upon hearing the voice. They began climbing the walls, trying to enter through the window. I let out a heaven-shaking tiger roar, echoing throughout the entire zoo. All the mutant monkeys froze. They turned around and saw me, a colossal beast. Instinctive fear made them take a few steps back. But soon, the madness brought by the mutation overcame the fear. They all pounced toward me together. It was a slaughter. I charged into the troop of monkeys. Every strike tore apart a mutant monkey. Their attacks landed on me, leaving only shallow white marks. They couldn't break my defense at all. In less than a minute, all the mutant monkeys fell into the pool. I quickly collected the crystal cores. I swallowed 13 of them in one go, and the energy gathered in my body. I felt my realm become more stable. "It's you. You're that tiger." I looked up at him and nodded. Old Zhang was stunned. A tiger can actually understand human speech and can even nod, but he quickly snapped out of it. Now is not the time for shock. He rushed downstairs and opened the door. Old Zhang's voice was trembling. "Thank you so much. What on earth happened outside?" I couldn't answer him. I just nudged him with my nose, signaling him to follow me. I led him to the zoo's underground warehouse. This is where food and medicine are stored. The walls are thick. The feed room had only one entrance. The feed room was easy to defend and hard to attack. I pushed old Zhang inside. Then I blocked the door with a huge iron cabinet. I used my claws to write these words on the ground. Old Zhang looked at the words on the ground. Tears streamed down his face. "You really can understand me. Don't worry. I'll wait here for you to return." I turned and left. There are still too many mutant beasts in the zoo. I need to clear them out and collect more crystal cores. After walking a few steps, I suddenly stopped. A foul stench wafted through the air. That was the smell of a decaying corpse. But the smell was too strong, abnormally strong. I followed the scent toward the reptile house. The pool at the animal house had already turned black. A large number of dead fish floated on the water. Something was wriggling in the center of the pool. I walked closer to take a look. My pupils instantly contracted. It was the corpse of a saltwater crocodile, but it was coming back to life. Decaying flesh was reorganizing. Broken bones were healing. Its eye sockets burned with a green light. An aura of death emanated from its body. I had killed the saltwater crocodile. A corpse transformation occurred in the radiation-filled pool, turning into a monster more terrifying than when it was alive. It opened its eyes, staring intently at me, attempting to slowly crawl out of the pool. Every step splashed foul-smelling water. Its body was no longer a normal flesh and blood body. It was a corpse forcibly assembled by radiation energy. Bleached white bones were exposed beneath the rotting scales. Its internal organs had long since decayed. Only a ball of green ghost fire flickered in its chest cavity. That was its core, and the source of its immortality. There was no emotion in its eyes, only hatred for the living. I took a step back, getting into a fighting stance. This guy is more troublesome than I imagined. Although the Styx Dragon-Crocodile from my previous life was powerful, at least it was a living creature. It had weaknesses and felt pain. The corpse crocodile before me had already transcended the boundary between life and death. It suddenly accelerated. Its massive body burst forth with an unnatural speed. I stepped aside to dodge its tail. As it swept past, it smashed the rockery behind me into rubble. What immense strength, at least 3 times stronger than when it was alive. I counterattacked, slapping its head with a paw. My claws sank deep into the rotting flesh. I could even feel the touch of the skull, but the corpse crocodile had no reaction. It opened its huge maw and snapped at my neck. No sense of pain. That is the most terrifying part. I barely dodged the corpse crocodile's fangs. They grazed past my fur. Just then, human screams echoed from the distance. It's the tourists. About a dozen survivors are hiding in the souvenir shop. The corpse crocodile heard the sound. It gave up on me, turned and crawled in that direction. I chased after it. The corpse crocodile's speed was astonishing. It smashed through the shop's glass doors and charged into the crowd. Screams echoed one after another. A security guard raised a stun baton to resist, but the corpse crocodile swiped him away with its tail. He hit the wall and died instantly. I lunged and bit the corpse crocodile's hind leg tightly, trying to drag drag it out, but it didn't care at all, continuing the slaughter. A woman holding a child hid behind the counter. The corpse crocodile flipped the counter with one claw, opening its gaping maw. I let go of the hind leg and bit its tail instead, pulling back with all my weight. The corpse crocodile was finally dragged out by me, but it turned and performed a death roll. I was rolled across the ground several times, stopping only after smashing 3 trash cans. The survivors in the shop took the chance to flee, but 5 people had already died at the hands of the corpse crocodile. I climbed up, covered in wounds. The corpse crocodile also stood up. It had a dozen deep wounds exposing the bone, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. Inside those wounds, there was only rotten black flesh and wriggling maggots. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't feel pain. This is 100 times harder to deal with than the Styx Dragon-Crocodile from my previous life. The corpse crocodile charged at me again. This time it got smarter, no longer biting with its mouth, but whipping with its tail. That tail was like a steel whip. Every swing made a whistling sound through the air. I dodged left and right, but I was still hit twice. A sharp pain shot through my ribs. This can't go on. I must find its weakness. I observed carefully, and found that every time the corpse crocodile attacked, the green ghost fire in its chest would grow brighter. That ghost fire is its energy core. As long as that fire is destroyed, it will die completely. But the problem is how to destroy it. Its ribs protect the chest like iron railings. My claws couldn't penetrate at all. Moreover, its reaction speed was extremely fast, giving me no chance to get close. Just as I was thinking of a countermeasure, the corpse crocodile suddenly stopped attacking. It raised its head and sniffed the air, then crawled in one direction. That direction was the underground warehouse. Old Zhang is still there. The corpse crocodile can sense the aura of the living. It's going to hunt Old Zhang. I must stop it. But with my current strength, I simply cannot kill this monster. I need a weapon capable of destroying its core. Suddenly, I remembered a place. The zoo's maintenance area. There is a high-voltage substation there, and various maintenance tools. If I can lure the corpse crocodile there, using high-voltage electricity and explosions, perhaps I can destroy its core. But this is very dangerous. One mistake, and I'll be blown to pieces too. The corpse crocodile has already crawled to the warehouse door. It began scratching the door with its claws. The iron door was shaking under its attack. Old Zhang screamed in terror inside. I have no time to hesitate. I rushed forward and bit the corpse crocodile's tail, pulling back with all my might. The corpse crocodile turned in rage and lunged at me. I let go and ran, sprinting toward the maintenance area. The corpse crocodile pursued relentlessly. The speed was faster than mine. The distance was constantly closing. The maintenance area is just ahead. I can see the high-voltage substation warning sign. A little faster. The corpse crocodile's claws had already grabbed my hind leg. I felt the sharp pain of flesh being torn, but I cannot stop. Stopping means death. 50 meters. 3 centimeters. 10 meters. I rushed into the maintenance area. The corpse crocodile followed close behind. Now it's time to settle this. The maintenance area is an open space. 3 huge pieces of transformer equipment stand in the center. Various maintenance tools and oil drums are piled around. The high-voltage warning sign under the blood-red sky looked exceptionally glaring. I rushed to the side of the substation, turning abruptly. The corpse crocodile followed immediately. It didn't notice the danger at all, only wanting to tear me to pieces. Pounced at me. I dodged to the side, trying to make it crash into the electrical equipment. The massive impact caused the equipment to emit a piercing alarm. Sparks flew everywhere, but this current was nothing to him. He shook his head and pounced at me again. My gaze swept around. Diesel. I saw a dozen oil drums stacked in the corner. That was diesel for maintenance. Every drum was full. A plan formed in my mind. I intentionally slowed down, letting the corpse crocodile chase me. Its claws grabbed my hind leg again. I let myself fall, rolling toward the pile of oil drums. The corpse crocodile pounced. I flipped over to dodge at the last moment. Its body crashed heavily into the oil drums. The drums were knocked over. Diesel spilled all over the ground. Pungent smell spread. The monster stood in the oil. The green ghost fire in its chest flickered more violently. It seemed to sense danger, and began to retreat, but it was too late. I rushed toward the electrical equipment, clawing fiercely at the control panel. Sparks flew. Wires snapped. High-voltage current went out of control. Leaping through the air, an electric arc landed on the oil, instantly igniting the diesel. Flames spread with a roar, surrounding the corpse crocodile in the blink of an eye. Fire was useless against him. His body had long since decayed. Unafraid of high temperatures, he charged out of the sea of fire and pounced at me. Right then, the electrical equipment began to smoke due to overload. Cracking sounds came from inside. Not enough, I need more power. At that very moment, I felt something awakening inside me. It was a metallic energy, surging from my dantian to my throat. My throat emitted a strange vibration. Visible ripples appeared in the air. This is my innate ability. Gung-gold tiger roar. I took a deep breath and let out a heaven-shaking roar at the corpse crocodile. The roar was no ordinary howl, but a sonic attack with a metallic vibrato. The sound waves became physical, slashing toward the monster like countless blades. His decayed flesh was torn apart by the sound waves. Ribs snapped. A gap was forcibly torn open in his chest. The green ghost fire was exposed to the air. Now is the time. The electrical equipment finally couldn't take it. Emitting a final wail, I turned and ran. A deafening explosion sounded behind me. Flames soared into the sky. High-voltage current and the explosion's shockwave intertwined, forming a destructive energy storm. The corpse crocodile was swallowed by the explosion. It let out a final screech. The ghost fire in its chest, under the dual attack of high heat and current, finally went out. The aftermath of the explosion blew me back over 10 meters. I slammed heavily onto the ground, charred all over. A large patch of my fur was burnt, but I survived. I struggled to stand up, looking toward the center of the explosion. The corpse crocodile's body had been blown to pieces, scattered all over the ground. That green ghost fire had completely vanished, leaving only a fist-sized black crystal core, lying quietly in the ruins.
I walked over.
Picked up the crystal core in my mouth. It was much heavier than a normal core, containing terrifying energy within. I swallowed it in one gulp, instantly feeling the power within me surge. My injuries were healing rapidly. The burnt fur fell off. New black gold fur grew back. My size increased once again. Muscles became firmer. Claws became sharper. I stood in the center of the ruins, howling toward the sky. The tiger's roar spread throughout the zoo. All the creatures, still mutating, felt this pressure. It was a proclamation from a king that this territory, from now on, there is only one ruler. I turned and left the maintenance area, heading deeper into the zoo. There are still some mutant beasts to clear, and some crystal cores to collect. But just as I took a few steps, I suddenly stopped. A giant shadow appeared in the distant sky. It wasn't a cloud, nor was it a bird, but instead, a creature of unimaginable size. It flickered in and out of the clouds. Its wingspan was at least 100 meters. The giant shadow in the sky soon vanished deep into the clouds, but its appearance made me realize that the outside world had completely changed. I looked away and continued clearing the zoo. For the next few hours, I swept through the entire park. Mutant vultures in the bird area, mutant bison in the herbivore area, mutant sharks in the aquarium. All became my prey. Every time I killed a mutant beast, I collected its crystal core. When I swallowed the 50th crystal core, my body underwent another qualitative change. A surge of majestic energy erupted within me. My bones let out a thunderous roar. The black gold fur became more brilliant. Every hair was like a metallic bead. The bone crown on my forehead extended into more complex patterns, like the crown of an ancient emperor. My size settled at 800 gene, shoulder height 2.5 meters, body length exceeding 4 meters. Standing there, I was like a mobile fortress. Gengjin Beast King. This is my current form. I walked toward the zoo's central plaza, preparing for a final inspection. But halfway there, I discovered a new danger. The plants were mutating too. The century-old banyan tree in the central plaza. Its trunk had expanded threefold. Branches waved in the air like tentacles. The lawn on the ground turned blood red. Every blade of grass was as sharp as a knife. The roses in the flower bed grew fang-like petals, devouring a mutant rat that had wandered in. The entire zoo had become a massive forbidden zone for life. I carefully crossed the mutant plant area and reached the underground warehouse. Old Zhang was still inside. Hearing my footsteps, he opened the door a crack. "Is it you? Is it really you? You're still alive. That's great," Old Zhang said, seeing me. Complex emotions flashed in his eyes. I nodded, writing on the ground with my claw. "I am leaving." Old Zhang fell silent for a moment. Then he said, "I understand. It's no longer safe here. You need to go to a wider place." He took a bunch of keys from his pocket. "These are the keys to the director's office. Inside is a map of the entire city and the locations of supply depots. If you need them, you can go take a look." I picked up the keys in my mouth and gave him one last look. Old Zhang said, "If humans ever rebuild civilization, I will tell them that a tiger once protected me." I turned and left, without looking back. I arrived at the director's office and opened the door with the key. The map inside marked the layout of the entire Panzhihua city, as well as the locations of military bases, hospitals, and granaries. I memorized the map. Then I walked out of the office, standing at the highest point of the zoo. I looked around. The once bustling amusement park was now only ruins. The once docile animals had either died or turned into monsters. This first battlefield after my rebirth had been completely conquered by me. But this was only the beginning. I could feel beyond the zoo walls more powerful auras surging. Those auras were more terrifying than any mutant beast I had encountered. The outside world was the true hunting ground. I took a deep breath, circulating the energy within my body. The Gengjin tiger's tiger's roar sounded again, this time louder than ever before. The sound waves became physical, shattering the surrounding glass, flipping over the rubble on the ground. This was my declaration, and my farewell. How far the roar traveled. It spread across the entire city. I took a few running steps, and then leaped violently. My 800 gene body carved an arc in the air, easily clearing the 5-meter-high wall. I landed steadily on the road outside the wall. My claws on the asphalt surface left deep gouges. I looked back at the zoo one last time. There are still a few survivors there, cowering in a safe house, shivering. They saw me, their eyes filled with awe and fear. I ignored them, turned and walked deeper into the city. Abandoned cars were everywhere on the streets. Mutated vines crawled all over the walls. Various roars echoed from the distance. Some were human, some were monsters. The sky was still blood red. The sun was nowhere to be seen. Only that eerie red light shrouded everything. I walked on the empty streets. Every step was filled with power. Suddenly, from the building ahead, came a deafening roar. That roar carried an air of intimidation, carried provocation, carried a declaration of territory. Something is waiting for me. I stopped in my tracks. A cold smile appeared on my lips. Come, let me see in this unfamiliar city. What else can block my path? My journey has just begun.